What is up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm doing a video that is kind of a little bit different to what I normally do. If you've subscribed to the channel, I normally make drifting vlogs and car related vlogs of me doing things to be able to go drifting. But today I wanted to kind of just generate a little bit of discussion around competition drifting in Australia and why it kind of sucks a little bit, a lot of a bit. So basically, I've been a long-term fan of drifting and competition drifting. I don't enter competitions, but I do like watching competitions. I think I went to watch my first one in probably 2010 when I was about 18. So, you know, it's been 9 years of, you know, I'd say being a casual viewer of drifting competitions. Since 2010, drifting competition Australia-wide has gone through a number of different brand names. So when I first started going to drifting, I think the first one I went to was what they called Stadium Drift. So Stadium Drift was a national competition in the, you know, I can't remember the exact dates. I think probably like, you know, 2006 to 2012, 13, 14, when they became like a sort of a state series and then kind of just dissolved a few years ago. Anyway, so they've had Stadium Drifting. Around that time as well, they did have what they call the Australian Drifting Grand Prix. aka ADGP, which was also a national competition, and there was various comps before that, you know, like Drift National, Drift Australia, and probably some other ones that I've missed. Due to all these name changes, I feel like it's very hard for people to keep up with what would be the national competition that they would be striving to get towards driving. Basically sort of a slight overview of where drifting has been in the last decade in Australia. Various different comps and lots of them going bust and lots of new ones appearing. So pretty much my first point as to why competition drifting sucks in Australia is there is no single national competition that people are driving these local competitions in order to be able to get to. So you don't drive your local state series or local track series, and then hopefully eventually you get a license to drive in a better series that has more competitive cars that would be at your level, and then you get to a national pro level. We don't really have that. The biggest drifting competitions in Australia at the moment are Drift Challenge Australia and High Tech Oils Drifting. Drift Challenge Australia is, in my opinion, what you'd call a more grassroots focused event. So they have a pro level, and then they have I guess like a pro-am amateur level. It's not a televised, it's not streamed. It's pretty much like if you go to the track, you can watch the action happen. That's basically your only option, unless someone's standing on the side of the track with their iPhone doing a live stream on Facebook or Instagram. So as a national competition, there's no massive national coverage. On the other hand, we have High Tech Oils, Drifting Australia, very long name. Anyway, so High Tech Oils is a Sydney-based competition that's been around since 2015. I think Drift Challenge Australia has been around since about 2014. Anyway, High Tech Oils is a Sydney-based competition. Well, when it first came out, it was Sydney only, and then in the recent years, they have actually started branching out to more of a national competition with, you know, rounds in Victoria and Queensland. They also have a professional level and a pro-am level. I would say that their professional level gets a lot more of the Australian professional drivers, and the competition in that I feel is a little bit higher standard. The car builds are more relevant to, say, like a Formula Drift pro level or pro-am level. You know, that's 600, 700, 800 horsepower type thing. So High Tech Oils is a televised, streamed competition. When there's a round on, they have a live stream, they have commentators, they have the whole deal. So you know exactly what's happening, and then they do televise it on a national TV program called Speed Week, which is on SBS. So I would say that High Tech in Australia is the closest thing to a national competition. But as a national competition, they have basically close to no viewership. Like, I looked at one of their recent rounds, a couple of their recent rounds. Their YouTube stream gets about 2,000 views. When you compare that to a round of Formula Drift, and it gets 200,000 views. I can release a video on my channel, and I will get more than 2,000 views. I am just one person, and these are a national drifting competition with 60 to 70 competitors. So I feel like people are not interested in trying to join a competition that gets no national recognition and barely any local recognition. That is basically my first point as to why drifting competitions in Australia suck. No one watches them. Very few watch them, which is disappointing. There's obviously a large appetite in Australia for people to drive these sort of events. There's literally, I'd say, close to half a dozen or more state level events. So we have like Vic Drift, there's South Australia have their competition at the Bend, there's WA Drift, there's something up in Darwin, apparently they drive up there. Queensland has the DCA's local series. Rally in Coffs Harbour have their own series. So there is lots of competitive drifting happening in Australia, but nothing on a national level that people watch, which I'm going to dive into some points now as to why people do not watch those competitions. People do not watch these competitions because the cars look terrible most of the time. There's the odd one here and there that is amazing, and you go, wow, that is a nice looking competition car. But I could honestly watch a top 32 pro level competition in Australia and probably dislike at least 30 of the cars of how they're presented. A lot of this comes down to, obviously styling, like wheels, body kits, wings, whatever. But the main thing that is really disappointing on a lot of the cars in Australia is the livery. It doesn't seem like anyone puts in a lot of effort to try and have a nice looking vehicle sticker-wise. Like, it's not that hard. You guys literally pay someone $1,000 and say, make my car look amazing with these sponsors on it. Easy. But apparently that is not easy. A lot of the cars really just seem poorly styled. And then I feel like that is a major turnoff. Like, I personally do not want to watch two ugly cars driving near each other. I would rather watch two very pretty cars driving further away from each other. Hey, if you have a pro car, make that thing look badass, and we might get some more viewers happening. We don't really have any big name drivers in Australia that drive competitions. We don't really have any big name drivers in Australia at all. Like some of the biggest names in Australian drifting are like Luke Fink, Jake Jones, Bo Yates, whoever else. Anyway, none of these people have a huge following. I think Drift Squid's probably got the biggest Instagram/YouTube following. Luke Fink's got a bit of a Facebook following. And Bo Yates doesn't really have a massive online presence. If you haven't heard of Bo Yates, he's probably one of the best drivers in Australia, and he's been driving for 15 years competitively in whatever national competition he can get in, and will place very, very well, if not win it, all of the time. I'd probably say that Bo is the best drifter in Australia, but people outside of Australia and worldwide don't really pay that much attention to him. I'm not sure why. He drives ridiculous. I've been in the car with him and it is insane. But like I'm saying, we don't have big name drivers that have a national presence or following to be able to be in these competitions and then people go and pay attention. It just does not happen. And it's one of the things that really, really doesn't help Australian competitive drifting. So yeah, it's very hard for people to get the name of a competition out there when people driving in it are mostly names that no one has actually heard of. No offense to these people. Obviously they're out there doing great, doing way better than I am drifting wise, but in the scheme of things, people are not paying attention. And you really need big names in a competition for people to care. You look at Formula Drift. They have Ryan Turek, Chris Forsberg, Vaughn Gittin Jr., just all of these huge names, on an international scale that all drive in this one competition. But that is also because of the competition having such a large fan base. And we really struggle to have a competition that has a large fan base that can propel these names to a larger audience. So one day, hopefully, that we can get to that level where there's a lot of people focusing on one competition or a few different competitions, that we can have people that are great drivers with great abilities that can come out, perform, and get recognition for that performance. I hope. I really hope. It's been almost 20 years of Australia not getting it right on that sort of level, and hopefully it doesn't take us another 20 years for us to start getting it right in a drifting capability, because there's a lot of people that would have stuck around drifting longer, and there would be a lot more cool things drifting related in Australia if we could get it right. So hopefully one day. The point is the money involved with competitive drifting. Obviously, it is a large cost to be able to do competitions, tires, fuel, getting to the tracks. The tracks in Australia are very spread apart for these national competitions, and yeah, it's an enormous cost. But with this cost, it's usually offset with sponsorship, brand deals, anything like that. Yeah, so we do not have people that have good sponsored deals in Australia. Even if they're professional drivers or drive at a professional level, enter competitions, win competitions, these competitions don't have enough of a following for you to go to a sponsor, to a company and be like, hey, I've been driving this and I'm getting heaps good positions. Can you sponsor me? Or however sponsorship works, I do not know. I've never been sponsored. I've never approached anyone to sponsor me. I don't understand how the whole process works, but owning a clothing brand, I would say that if someone's getting a lot of views, good positions, or good placings, and some recognition on a national scale or international scale, then I would be interested in giving them some money and some merchandise. Like I've said about these competitions, they do not have big followings and they do not get big views. So it's very hard for people to have the money to enter these competitions without that happening. So it's a bit of a catch-22. No one drives these competitions because there's no money, and then there's no money because no one watches these competitions because no one's driving these competitions. So it's a very difficult cycle, and people and promoters really need to work out a way to get a lot more viewers and hype around these events that they are putting on. And then the drivers will come and the sponsors will come and people will start paying attention. But I feel like that is a major issue because of the history of Australian drifting having so many different competitions that have failed. I think there's probably 4 or 5 that were like national level competitions that have failed and fallen over, and a lot of the brands associated with those competitions have a very sour taste in their mouth and do not want to be involved with drifting in Australia. Further to this, there is no prize money in competition drifting to encourage people to be driving these competitions. I think I've seen some photos of the high-tech Pro-Am, and for winning a round of the Pro-Am you got $300, second place was like $200, and third place is $100. I've come third. I've gone through a top 32, a top 16, a top 8, a top 4, and then I've not won. So I've done 4 different rounds of competition and I get $100. I may as well have stayed at home. That $100 buys 1 tire. Every 2 battles, I'd say you use a pair of tires. And out of the 4 battles, I've used a full set of tires, and I can replace one of them with my position on the podium. I don't know about you, but to me that seems like a terrible, terrible, terrible deal. Terrible deal. Anyway, so to recap, the reasons why competitive drifting in Australia sucks is no national competition, no viewership, no sponsors, and no prize money. These are all very, very important things into running successful nationwide competitions, and currently we do not have that. I would love to see some competition in Australia having all of these and being a viable option for people to go buy drift cars, learn to drift, build a competition level car, enter competitions, win competitions, and live off that sort of, that income. That would be amazing for drifting to be able to be classed as a professional sport in Australia. Currently, we're not even close. Nowhere near being close enough to having a professional drifting industry. I feel like I've probably missed a lot of points. This is my first time doing this type of video, and it's a lot harder than it looks. So basically, I'm going to stick to grassroots drifting, building fun cars for minimal money, making YouTube videos, and trying to sell Death Click merchandise. If you like the video, check it out. Buy something if it tickles your fancy. Helps me out a lot. Anyway, thank you for watching. Drop your thoughts on competitive drifting in Australia in the comments below, and I will see you guys next week, as long as you subscribe to the channel. Thank you.